Hey, it's Dave. Welcome back to my channel. So I'm back at it, at the Ace Frehley stuff. A couple of friends of mine have been talking a lot about Kiss lately and just getting a bunch of laughs. And I have to say, they get a kick out of the fact that I just do not like Destroyer. I feel that record is like, to me, it's like a kid's record. Just the songs, great other than Sweet Pain, I think the album's just terrible. I think it's easily the worst of the first 6 studio albums, in my opinion. And I would go far as to say it's the worst of the first 8 studio albums. And of course, I'm including Dynasty and Unmasked. I just think it's terrible. I'm not a big fan of the later 3. And I'm not a huge fan of Unmasked. I think Dynasty was a great record. I think the Ace Frehley songs on that album especially. But the first 3 albums to me is like, for me, that's the band. You can feel in that band on those records that there's much more of a group effort, that it's like a rock band. And also I think that, the songs, especially on the first album, are probably the best of them, with some of them bleeding into the later albums. I really like Dressed to Kill, although lyrically I'd say 90% of the album is miserable, lyrically. Of course, I love Anything for My Baby. I love Love Her All I Can. And I love Getaway. In fact, I think when Gene comes in, he's like, gotta get away. To me, that's like the greatest. Gene is easily my favorite singer in the band. I'm not a big fan of Paul's voice, although I do prefer Paul's voice on the earlier albums than I do later. And especially 80s Kiss, forget it. I can't even listen to Paul. I think his voice is so bad. It's so high and obnoxious. It just doesn't sound good to me. But on the first 3 albums, I think Paul's voice was very good, but to me, Gene was the voice of the band that I loved hearing in those songs. I'm a very big Gene fan. That being said, I think Peter Criss songs are very good. I think Getaway's a great song. Strange Way. I love the songs Peter Criss sings. I can't really call them Peter Criss songs. He didn't write them, but still, the ones that he sang, I thoroughly enjoyed his voice. I am not an Ace voice fan, and like Shock Me. I'm glad he decided he wanted to sing. It's just not for me. I don't like his voice. As far as his playing goes, I really think Ace was an interesting player on the guitar, coming up with what he did and what he chose as influences, and you could pretty much hear them. But he had some interesting takes on some of the scales. Love Gun kind of shows it. That he wasn't just playing pentatonic, he actually was getting inside some of the notes, that he hits the 9 quite often in that last riff. But I really like Ace. I liked his attitude. I think he was an integral part of the band, especially in those early years as the lead player. And some of the stuff that him and Paul were doing on guitar I thought was very interesting. That you could hear the different guitar parts, and I liked that. One thing I never got was in Deuce, there's that stutter in that, like when it goes ba-na-na-na, I hate that stutter. I don't know what it is, but if I was producing that record back then, I probably would have been just like, guys, let's just play it straight. It's a great rock song. I think that stutter in the riff is just awkward, and it makes it like it just gives it an awful feel. The live album, it's not there so much. You don't really hear it, and but it's really prevalent on the original, on the first album. And by the way, the first album to me is their best album. I just think, other than you could throw the song "Kissing Time" away, which they were like forced to do from the label. The rest of the stuff is just really great. Let Me Know, 100,000 Years, Strutter, Firehouse, just great songs. It was a very good album. And in that respect, the first 3 Kiss albums I really like. Up to Alive, I love Alive. I think Alive's a great album. To me, Kiss Alive is their farewell show, because after that, it was like they became a cartoon of themselves. Like Detroit Rock City, I can't tell you how much I dislike it. King of the Nighttime World, Do You Love Me, God of Thunder. I mean, I hate it all. Beth, although I don't think Beth's a bad song, it's just a bad Kiss song. Shout It Out Loud. I mean, I can't. These songs are just rotten in my opinion, and these are just all my opinion. If you love Kiss and this is your thing, God bless you. I grew up a huge Kiss fanatic and loved it all. When I got older, and after I listened to like a lot of Zeppelin and a lot of other stuff, and then went through every different phase of music listening to it, when I went back to revisit Kiss, it's funny, you listen to it, like when I heard like albums like Rock and Roll Over, Love Gun, and Destroyer, I was like, really? Like, this is what I listened to? And I didn't see the allure. I was like, how did I ever listen to this? And then when I go back and I listen to the first 3 albums, I'm like, oh, that's a good rock band. Like, that is good. And, all these guys have written books and have slung the dirt about each other. And, I think, all of them you could take with a grain of salt. I think Ace's book, No Regrets, is probably the best because I think it might be the most honest. He doesn't paint himself in a great light. And he does compliment the other guys at certain things, but he also calls it out like it is and dislikes a lot of the same stuff that I didn't like, and I probably wouldn't like had I been the guitar player in the band. I probably would have been turned off by it as well. Although seeing the money coming in and not being a drinker myself or into drugs, I would probably have been like, I'll suffer. But I'm just saying, he wasn't so, he was in a different boat and probably not thinking too clearly. But his book clearly states that. It's a very good book, and I would recommend to read Ace Frehley's No Regrets. The Peter book is a little, I think Peter has a little bit of a problem to me. It's like, he's got a problem with Ace because Ace, didn't tell him that he was making more than him. It's like, you know what, take care of yourself. Like, don't worry about what somebody else is making. If you're in a contract with a band, you make your own deal. If your deal's not that good, or you wanted a deal with Kiss to say, I want at least what Ace gets, then you should have had a favored nations clause in your contract, but you didn't. And then you blame Ace for it. It's like, why is Ace not your attorney? So I really I dislike Peter Criss's books. I dislike his attitude mainly. Paul has got a chip on his shoulder. Paul is like, people insult his songwriting. He's got a problem with it. He just wants to live on the laurels that Kiss sold a lot of records and we're good. And it's like, yeah, it's a little bit more than that. And he doesn't take criticism too well. And it's a painful listen. If you go on YouTube, you can follow he reads the book, and it is painful, especially when he starts talking about food near the end of the book. You literally starts talking about food. You're just like, how is Gene in a band with this guy? Like, how is Gene the bad guy? If I had to hear this guy describe food, I might be buying a shovel and lie and sitting there trying to figure out where I'm going to bury him. It's brutal. Anyways, I was a huge Kiss fan growing up. I highly recommend the first album as their best album. I would recommend that. I think Dressed to Kill is probably a close second, with Hotter Than Hell coming in third, only because I think the production of Hotter Than Hell sounds like crap. Whatever that's worth. Anyways, me and my friends have just been talking a lot about Kiss. I thought I would kind of ramble about it for a little bit. And I got some videos coming up, some more stuff to play on. And I got a couple of lesson stuff. I had a guy ask me about a couple of different songs, and kind of the same old question comes up about rootless chords. So I'm going to do a segment on rootless chords coming up, chords that don't have the root note in them, and I'll get to that. And other than that, very good.
If you like seafood, I could make a swordfish with Dijon mustard and capers, maybe serve it with some pasta and, oh, I don't know, maybe broccoli with garlic and lemon and olive oil? Dad's Brussels sprouts. I explained how to pan-fry them and told him how much balsamic vinegar, dried cherries, and prosciutto I used. And don't forget to top them with some grated Parmesan cheese and a little lemon zest.
You're right on target.
You're right on the money. Everything you said.
You hit the nail right on the head with your comments, what you're saying today.
You're 150% correct.